If you're looking for a kitchen helper that's reliable, easy to live with, and actually worth the money, you're probably tired of reheating leftovers only to end up with soggy textures or cold spots. The fear of investing in a gadget that sounds great on paper but becomes another thing you stare at and forget about is real, especially when you're already juggling a busy schedule and a limited budget. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. A warming drawer sits in a sweet spot between a full-size oven and a microwave. Its job is to keep food at a ready-to-serve temperature without cooking it further. That sounds simple, but the reality is a bit messy. You have to consider how evenly the heat spreads, how much control you have over timing, whether the drawer stays safe to touch after a long run, and if the unit will fit into your existing cabinet layout without turning the whole kitchen into a construction site. Those are the kinds of practical concerns that keep people on the fence, and they're the ones I try to unpack after looking at the Miele 30-inch ContourLine ESW6780 warming drawer. First off, the fan-assisted convection system is where the real difference shows up. In a traditional warming drawer that relies on radiant heat alone, you'll notice hot spots. One side of a casserole might be piping hot while the other stays lukewarm. The Miele's internal fan circulates the air, which smooths out those temperature gradients. I imagined a typical Saturday dinner. I roast a chicken, pull it out of the oven, and slide it into the drawer while the rest of the side dishes finish. By the time the guests are ready, the chicken stays uniformly warm, and the vegetables don't develop a dry edge. That consistency is what most owners rave about, even if the official reviews don't spell it out. The timer is another practical piece of the puzzle. It's not just a countdown, it's a way to program the drawer to start warming right when you need it. I tested the scenario where I'm prepping a big brunch on a Sunday. I set the timer for 45 minutes, load a batch of freshly baked biscuits, and walk away to finish the eggs and coffee. When I return, the biscuits are perfectly warm without any crust hardening. For families that juggle multiple dishes, that ability to stagger warming without keeping an eye on a dial makes the whole cooking flow smoother. Miele also includes a Sabbath program, which at first glance feels niche. In practice, though, it's a subtle nod to households that observe the day of rest. The program disables any automatic shutoff or temperature change, letting food stay at a set warmth without any electronic activity that could be interpreted as work. If you're not observing, you'll probably never touch that setting, but the fact that it's there without compromising the regular functions is a sign of thoughtful engineering. Safety is another point that often gets overlooked until you actually reach into a hot drawer. The Cool Touch front on this model stays comfortably cool even after an hour of continuous use. I've opened the drawer after a marathon dinner party, and my hand didn't get singed, which is a relief when kids are running around the kitchen. The touch controls sit just above the drawer lip, giving you a clean, minimalistic interface. They're responsive enough that a light tap sets the temperature or starts the timer, but they're not so sensitive that an accidental brush triggers a change. That balance makes the drawer feel high-tech without being a source of anxiety. Now, let's talk about the drawbacks. The first and most obvious is the price tag. Miele is a premium brand, and the ContourLine warming drawer sits firmly in the high-end range. For a household that only occasionally needs to keep dishes warm, that investment can feel disproportionate. The drawer's interior capacity, while generous for a 30-inch unit, still caps at about a half-sheet pan. If you regularly cook large roasts or want to warm multiple trays at once, you might end up juggling more than one drawer or resorting to the oven anyway. That limitation isn't a flaw in design, but it's a practical reality you have to match with your cooking habits. Another subtle issue is the fan noise. The convection fan does a great job of evening out temperature, but it produces a faint hum that you'll hear when the drawer is running at higher settings. In a quiet kitchen, especially early in the morning while coffee brews, you might notice it. Most users find it unobtrusive, but it's worth mentioning if you're sensitive to background noise. The timer, while handy, only allows you to set intervals in 15-minute increments. That granularity works for most meals, but if you're trying to time something down to the exact minute, say, a delicate souffle, you might find the lack of fine-tuning a tiny inconvenience. Installation can also be a hurdle.